Okay, so get this. Today's deep dive. We're talking hurricanes.
Hurricanes.
Well, not just hurricanes themselves, but how some scientists want to use, wait for it, jet engines to kind of, control them.
Hold on, using jet engines to control hurricanes.
Yeah.
That's what this research paper is about.
You sent it over. And yeah, it's pretty wild, right? The sheer, audacity of it blew me away.
What I find really interesting is how this whole idea fits into this long history of trying to lessen the impact of hurricanes. Like, the authors talk about those crazy hurricane seasons we had back in 2004, 2005. Remember those?
Oh, yeah. Brutal.
Right. So after things like cloud seeding didn't really pan out, it seems like people are, desperate for a different approach. Something totally new.
And new this is. They're talking about these fleets of barges or ships outfitted with jet engines, but like pointed upwards. And they just, I guess, park them in the ocean to mess with how hurricanes form. It's kind of like a sci-fi movie.
It's the scale of it that gets me. Imagine this. We're talking retired Boeing 707 engines, the ones we used to fly on.
No way.
Yeah. And each one of those can put out something like 50,000 newtons of thrust. It's almost like they want to build this, I don't know, a hurricane-fighting Air Force.
What?
But on water.
Okay, so not just a gentle breeze then. We're talking serious power here. But I don't get it. Why point the engines up? Are they trying to, blow the hurricane away with a giant fan?
Not quite. Think of it this way. You know how firefighters sometimes fight fire with fire?
Controlled burns, right?
Exactly. So these researchers, they want to create what they call anthropogenic cyclones, which are basically, man-made hurricanes. And they'd use these smaller, controlled ones to stop the big hurricane from, getting bigger.
So they want to cut the hurricane off from its food source.
Yeah, you could say that.
Like how controlled burns starve wildfires, you said?
Exactly. You see, hurricanes get their energy from the warm water on the ocean surface. So the jet engines would mix that warm water with the cooler water deeper down, kind of like stirring a giant pot. And that would, in theory, disrupt the hurricane's energy source.
Okay, so that's the idea. But how do they actually, deploy these hurricane busters? Do they just wait for a hurricane to show up and then send in the fleet?
That's one way they talk about doing it, yeah. They call it reactive deployment. So picture this. A hurricane starts forming out in the ocean, and these jet engine ships scramble to get in front of it and try to weaken it before it hits land.
But wouldn't that be, incredibly risky? What if they mess up the timing? Or what if it makes the hurricane worse somehow?
Those are definitely concerns they bring up in the paper. This reactive approach, it has a lot of potential downsides. They haven't quite figured out the timing of it all. Imagine if they accidentally create 3 smaller hurricanes instead of one big one.
Oh no, that's even worse. So is there any way to prevent these hurricanes before they even start?
That's where their second scenario comes in. Proactive patrols. Picture those ships constantly patrolling areas where hurricanes usually form and using their jet engines to proactively create these smaller cyclones, basically cooling the ocean over a much larger area.
So instead of reacting to a hurricane, they're constantly managing the ocean's temperature so hurricanes can't even form in the first place.
Exactly. It's a fascinating idea, even if it sounds kind of crazy. But we have to remember, we're talking about messing with incredibly complex systems here. The Earth's atmosphere, the ocean, there's always a chance of, unintended consequences, and the researchers know that.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, what could possibly go wrong? We're talking about messing with hurricanes here. It can't be as simple as just pointing a jet engine at the water and problem solved.
Right. You're right to be a little skeptical. A lot of the paper actually talks about what they call the secondary effects of these artificial cyclones. Hurricanes, they don't just exist in isolation. They're powerful events that influence weather patterns way beyond the storm itself.
So you're saying that if we create these artificial cyclones, we could be messing with the natural order of things in ways we don't even understand?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it shows us how much we still don't know about meteorology, especially on this kind of scale.
It's like we're suddenly Dr. Frankenstein trying to control a monster we created.
Yeah, there's a real playing God aspect to all of this, and the paper actually gets into that.
Because let's just say, for argument's sake, this crazy idea works. Who gets to decide when to roll out these hurricane-taming jet engines?
Right, that's where it gets really complicated. Imagine, countries fighting over who gets to control the weather. You could have international incidents because one country is trying to protect its coastline and accidentally makes a hurricane worse for someone else.
Weather wars. It sounds like a bad movie.
The paper even mentions international treaties. We'd need rules about how and when to use this technology.
It's crazy, suddenly meteorology is the new battleground.
And then think about it on a smaller scale. Even within a country, Who decides when a hurricane's bad enough to try and mess with it? What if there are consequences to the environment from these artificial cyclones? We don't know.
Yeah, that's what I keep coming back to. What if we create a whole new set of problems while trying to fix this one?
It's about more than just public opinion, too. It's accountability. If something goes catastrophically wrong, who's to blame? The scientists, the government.
So many what ifs.
Exactly. And we haven't even touched on whether or not this technology could actually work on a big enough scale. Even the researchers admit, going from a theoretical paper to actually doing this out in the ocean, that's a huge leap.
Yeah, we're talking about like a whole fleet of these hurricane-fighting ships. That can't be cheap.
Not at all. They estimate just a pilot program to test it out could cost millions, if not more. They even suggest maybe using old military jets, the ones they don't use anymore, to try and get it off the ground, literally.
So they're serious about this. They really think it could work.
They do. And they make a good point. You can't understand the real impact of these artificial cyclones until you try it out in a controlled way. But can they even create a test hurricane without it, turning into a disaster?
It's kind of terrifying, isn't it? Like, the possibility is amazing, but the risks are huge.
And that's why this whole thing is so fascinating. It's not just about jet engines and the physics of it all. It makes us ask this bigger question. Should we even be trying to control something as powerful as a hurricane?
I don't think there's an easy answer to that one. It really makes you think, like, are we about to enter this whole new world where we can just, I don't know, order up some good weather?
Like that old saying, right? Everyone wants to control the weather until they actually can.
Exactly. But it's not just about, like, wanting a sunny beach day. This research makes you think about our whole relationship with nature,
It's a huge responsibility. And it's not just up to the scientists anymore. It's policymakers, ethicists, even regular people. We all have a stake in this.
Because if something does go wrong, it's not like we can just, turn the hurricane off?
And that's what makes this paper so important.
Yeah.
It's not giving us all the answers. It's more like it's just the beginning of the conversation.
It's kind of like they've thrown open this door to a whole new world with amazing possibilities, but also, some scary ones.
And the more we learn about things like climate change, the more urgent those questions become.
It's almost like a moral dilemma, isn't it? We have the potential to do something incredible, but should we?
It's the kind of question that could be debated forever. It probably will be.
Well, I think this deep dive has given everyone a lot to think about. It's been fascinating, if a little terrifying, to be honest.
It really makes you realize how much we still don't know and how much is at stake.
Exactly. So, to everyone listening, what do you think? Should we be trying to control hurricanes? Let us know. And until next time, keep those brains buzzing, and we'll be back soon with another